Okay, let's try and unpack this. We've got these reports focusing on, well, recent military actions between India and Pakistan.
Right, specifically following that terrible terrorist attack in Pahalgam. April 22nd, wasn't it?
That's the one. April 22nd, 26 people killed.
Yeah.
Just awful. And that seems to be the trigger for everything else we're seeing.
Exactly. So you've shared a YouTube transcript from Channel 24, some journalist insights, and then these clashing reports from Indian and Pakistani media.
Yeah, quite a mix. So our mission, really, in this deep dive is to kind of cut through the noise, figure out what reportedly happened, the immediate fallout, and these different stories popping up.
And you wanted to get a clear picture without getting bogged down, right?
Right.
So focus on the key events and the conflicting info.
Precisely. Because this is where it gets, well, really interesting.
It always does in these situations. That initial event, the Pahalgam attack, 26 lives lost, it's devastating, and it clearly set things in motion.
It absolutely did. It's cited as the direct catalyst. So let's get right into India's reported response. The Channel 24 transcript paints a pretty dramatic picture.
Yeah, it mentions missile strikes.
Missile strikes, yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently targeting 9 locations across 6 different regions inside Pakistan.
Wow, 9 locations. That's quite extensive.
It is.
Yeah.
And the transcript stresses the scale here. It claims this is the first time since 1971 that all 3 branches of the Indian military, Army, Navy, Air Force acted together against Pakistan like this.
Since 71. Okay, that is significant. It suggests a major escalation compared to previous incidents.
Definitely. The report says this action supposedly went beyond the scale of the response to the 2019 Pulwama attack.
Which was already quite serious. So this indicates a much stronger reaction this time around, maybe a perceived need for a very forceful unilateral move.
Seems like it, but almost immediately, this is where the stories diverge sharply. The media narratives start conflicting.
Yes. The classic fog of war, even in the information space. What are the key differences highlighted?
Well, the big one mentioned in the transcript, Pakistani media claiming they shot down 5 Indian warplanes. 5.
Okay, that's a huge claim. And what about the Indian side?
That's the thing. The transcript explicitly notes there's absolutely no confirmation of that from Indian media sources, just silence on that specific claim.
Right, a total contradiction.
Right.
That immediately flags the challenge, doesn't it? Trying to figure out what actually happened on the ground versus the narratives being pushed.
Exactly. It really highlights how information itself becomes a battleground in these moments. Each side has its own audience, its own goals.
Sure, domestic consumption, international perception, it all plays a role.
So flipping over to Pakistan's account, the transcript mentions a press conference. It was the DGISPR, that's their military's PR wing, Inter-Services Public Relations.
Okay, the official military spokesperson, what did they report?
According to this transcript, they reported casualties from the Indian strikes, 8 deaths and 35 injuries inside Pakistan.
8 dead, 35 injured. Okay. Any other details from their side?
Yes, and it's quite serious. They also claim that several mosques were hit during these strikes.
Mosques. Wow. Okay. That's a very sensitive and serious allegation. And India's reaction to these specific claims from Pakistan, casualties, the alleged mosque hits?
Well, the transcript suggests not much initially. Apparently, beyond one single tweet right after the strikes were reported, there wasn't any immediate official comment from India addressing Pakistan's casualty figures or the claim about mosques being hit, or even the downed planes.
So a sort of initial silence then. We have the action reported by India, then these counterclaims and casualty reports from Pakistan, but a gap in India's public response to those specific points based on this source.
Exactly. It seems quite uneven in that immediate aftermath. Now, what are the feeling inside India? How were these actions reportedly received there?
The transcript touches on that. It suggests there was definitely some public approval, maybe even strong support among parts of the population.
Like people felt it was justified.
Yeah. Phrases like good step and revenge was needed were mentioned. It points to a feeling that this military action was a necessary, maybe overdue response to the Pahalgam attack.
Understandable, perhaps, that desire for retribution or accountability after something so tragic. It's a powerful emotion.
It is a very human reaction, but it also brings up that critical question, doesn't it? Could this have been handled differently? Through diplomacy, through dialogue.
Right. Why couldn't discussion prevent this escalation? The transcript does offer the Pakistani perspective on this.
Yes, and that's quite interesting. According to the information here, Pakistan's foreign minister and others were saying they were consistently open to dialogue right from the start.
Even after India pointed the finger at a Pakistan-based group for the Pahalgam attack.
Apparently so. The transcript notes they even proposed a joint investigation into the attack, a transparent one.
A joint investigation. That sounds, well, potentially constructive, doesn't it? At least as a proposal.
It certainly could be seen that way. And they also reportedly made repeated statements, like from Khaj Asif, saying Pakistan didn't want to use nuclear weapons, trying to signal they wanted to avoid the ultimate escalation.
Okay, so Pakistan, according to this source, is emphasizing dialogue, investigation, de-escalation signals. What about India's stance on dialogue in this immediate period?
Well, that's the key contrast presented here. The transcript suggests there wasn't a similar publicly stated willingness for dialogue coming from the Indian side right after the attack and the strikes.
So, based purely on this information set, it looks like one side was publicly pushing for talks and the other wasn't, at least not immediately or openly.
That appears to be the picture painted by this specific transcript, yes. Pakistan emphasizing dialogue, India's immediate response being more military-focused with less public emphasis on discussion in that initial phase. Of course, there could be other factors or communications happening behind the scenes.
Sure, always possible, but based on what we have here. So let's try and synthesize. What does it all mean? We have a horrific attack, followed by a significant multi-pronged military response from India.
A response reported to be larger in scale than previous recent ones.
Right. But then the immediate aftermath is just messy. Conflicting media reports, especially on major things like downed aircraft, disagreement on the basic fact.
And different casualty reports, plus a very serious claims from Pakistan about mosques being hit.
And crucially, this apparent divergence in the stated approach to de-escalation. Pakistan reportedly pushing dialogue. India's immediate public stance, per this source, looking different.
Exactly. So it's swift action, followed by an information war, conflicting narratives, and differing public postures on diplomacy. That's the immediate picture we get from these reports.
So this deep dive into these initial reports, it really shows a picture of, well, fast military action and these starkly different stories emerging almost instantly.
Yeah, you can really see how fast things get confused, how hard it is to know the full truth in real time in these kinds of situations.
Absolutely. And that question about diplomacy.
Yeah.
Why it wasn't perhaps the immediate priority, at least from the Pakistani view presented here. It leaves us with something important, doesn't it?
Definitely. It makes you think about the role communication or maybe the lack of public communication or differing styles of it plays. Does it help calm things down or does it just ratchet up the tension further?
That's the question, isn't it? How much does talk, or the absence of talk, shape where things go next between nations in conflict? It's certainly something to keep mulling over as you process all this.